Yo, welcome back or welcome to the channel. This is Toru. I'm a music producer based in Portland, Oregon, and I make music for that space between the dance floor and the bedroom. The song that I'm gonna talk about today, Room to Breathe, is just another example of that. This song in particular has actually become more special over time. As it turns out, it was one of the last songs that I made while I was living in San Francisco. At the time, just starting to think about moving to Portland, not knowing what would be on the other side. So if you're thinking about making a change, already in the midst of one, I encourage you to trust yourself. I hope that sharing my project and process helps fuel your fire in some way, whether your work is music or not. If you've already heard Room to Breathe, thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't, I invite you to check it out. It is streaming on all platforms, and Pay What You Want on Bandcamp, along with all of my other music. And without further ado, let's get into it. So here's my Ableton Live set for Room to Breathe. These first 5 peach tracks are swells, as I tend to do. All these red tracks are drums. All of these pink tracks are for percussion and atmospheric elements. These 2 blue tracks are bass. This purple track is a Rhodes. The next 4 pinkish purple tracks are synth samples. This purple track is a keyboard part. These 3 green tracks are guitar parts. And these last 3 tracks are vocal and horn samples. The main chord progression of this song was played on this Mark II Rhodes and then sliced to MIDI and chopped in Ableton. So in the intro, I bring in a kick, some hats. There are 2 atmospheric parts. And then multiple percussion elements. There's a tambourine. There's a shaker. There's a crumbling noise. As well as some hand drums. And then there's a key bass part that follows the chord progression played on the Rhodes. The intro drums kick off with no snare. And when I add the atmosphere and percussion elements to the drums, I feel like these elements just bring a little bit of life and energy to the drums. Agree? Disagree? Catch me in the comments. How about that? After the intro, I bring in a new percussion part. And finally, let you hear a snare. And this A section really just continues to build by the addition of new layers. We have some bleeps, some bloops, more bleeps, more bloops, and again, bleeps and bloops. So now that we have drums, percussion, bass, Rhodes, and all these electronic elements, to make the transition to the B section, I programmed a drum fill and layered a swell. I feel like the B section serves as a release after the A section just kind of continues to build, and then we just sort of drop off. So if the A section is where you walk along a diving board and look over the edge, the B section is where you jump off and make your splash into the pool. In the B section, we move from a 4 on the floor feel to something that's a little bit more funky. So the kick pattern before is now the B section actually brings in 5 new percussion parts. There are 3 shakers, a triangle, and a hand drum. In the B section, I also layer in some new snares and hats, and that makes the drum sound The chord progression stays the same in the B section. Instead of the Rhodes, it's now this keyscape hybrid piano. And instead of these whole notes, it's now these quick hits or stabs on the one. The B section has two bass parts. The bass keys sync up with that keyboard part. And the second is a bass guitar part that works between the chord changes. The B section has three guitar parts. The first one syncs up with the piano and the bass keys. The second guitar part is some chucking. And the third is a palm muted riff. And then there's a synth lead played on this Juno emulation. Yeah, I may not use any of that. What else is there? One of the synth samples from the A section was kind of sliced up and brought into the B section. Then I automated a filter to open as it moves through the section. So now that we have that transition and all the different elements in the B section, the second time the B section comes around, I introduce a vocal sample and two horn parts. So in context, after we add the vocal sample and the horns, so that's it for the breakdown of Room to Breathe. Thank you so much for watching. Just a couple more things before we go. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell. I've got more videos coming, do not miss them. Follow along on the other platforms. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and making music on Twitch several times a week at Toru B. I'll link all of that in the description below. Again, for those of you who have already heard Room to Breathe, thank you so much for listening. Take this time to go ahead and run it back. And if you haven't heard it, I invite you to check it out. It's now streaming on all platforms and pay what you want on Bandcamp. One last reminder, do not neglect yourself or the work that matters to you. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.